Incoming transmission. Initiating data compilation protocol. Compilation complete. Enhancing. Initializing data playback. Code alpha. Begin playback.
Good morning, everybody. This is Matt, and another Madness AM. This one, in particular, for July 16th, 2015. 9:26 a.m. I'm off to a very late start. I think I'm coming down with something, hence the late start, and also preemptive apology for this being any slower than usual, and if I'm a little more scatterbrained than I normally am. But anyway, yeah, nothing really new going on this morning, except for some junk going on in my throat a little bit, yeah. But Odallus is out. Odallus: The Dark Call, which is a game by Joy Masher, Brazilian, very small Brazilian independent game development studio. Just like 2 or 3 people. They did a game called ONIKEN a few years ago, and I think they've been working on Odallus for the last 2 years, and I've been following it, and I've been very excited about it. And it's finally out. I think it released yesterday, but it's on Steam. It's on their. You can get it through their homepage as well, joymasher.com. And just like ONIKEN, Odallus looks to be very true to something you'd find on the NES. Like, it's retro in style, but it's also retro in its in how it limits itself. You know, they use the same color palette on the NES, and what looks like to be the same amount of colors you can have per sprite on the NES. So they you know, artificially kind of restricted themselves and put limitations on the project, which I think is kind of fascinating. I know there are tons of other people that do this too out there, and it's a popular approach. Like, I've seen you know, games made up to look like they could run on an Atari 2600 or something, or on DOS. You know, the old crusty color palette on there. But yeah, so it's retro in that it. I'm pretty sure on Odallus you could even play it with a 2-button controller, like an old NES gamepad. I know ONIKEN you could, but they're gorgeous games. They're beautiful games. I think there's something to be said too to limiting your color palette. That forces you to be a little more creative, and it unifies the look of everything too. That's something that I kind of lament about Savage a little bit, is that I play fast and loose with the visual rules on that game. So certain things tend to look like maybe they don't fit so well together. You know, there's not a lot of visual like cohesion, in my opinion. But games like Odallus and ONIKEN pull it off fantastic, and they look like they could go on, you know, go on a cartridge or something and just pop it into your Nintendo, and you're playing a game that looks like Ninja Gaiden or something. But the actual style and the character design in both games reminds me a lot of like Fist of the North Star or the old Vampire Hunter D, like very 80s anime in visual theme, which that's fantastic. I loved those films and that particular aesthetic, and I kind of miss it. I miss when anime was a little stranger. They had some strange stuff going on, and the overall like art and design wasn't quite so homogenized like it is now. Like, a lot of it to me, and I'm not by no means an anime fan or anything. I'm just talking about what I pick up very superficially. Like I see screenshots for things, and I'm like, oh, it looks the same. It looks like it was made by the same dude, with the same like production line of people just like cranking out this artwork, like almost like a paint by numbers kind of thing. And I miss when these productions were a little more original looking, and like they were still trying to figure things out, and like, oh, what if we did this? And but I don't know. I guess it could be argued that the same could be said for things like Fist of the North Star and Vampire Hunter D back in the day. But so I'm probably just looking at it through rose-colored glasses, so just ignore me. But the games themselves are gorgeous. Odallus has got a $14.99 price point, which is, that seems a little expensive for what it is. But I mean, I'm a fan of their work, so I'm gonna throw that down. But I think for like maybe a more casual consumer, like somebody who's just kind of coming across it for the first time, I wonder if that's going to dissuade them from picking it up. It's hard to put a price on stuff like this, especially now with digital distribution and stuff, and all different kinds of ways to play every single game. You find the same game on mobile that you could find on like a tablet, that you can find on like a console and on a PC, and they're all different prices, and it's the same game, like Plants vs. Zombies or something. And you have your your AAA stuff, and you have the stuff like middle market, kind of, not so much anymore, but and then straight up like independent stuff, which is all over the map. So it's like, how do you price this stuff? Do you price it on how many hours someone could potentially play through it, or the average hours it could take to beat it, or how long it took you to make it, or how shiny the graphics are. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting discussion to have, I think, and that people have been having for quite a while too. I just thinking about Odallus's price point has kind of mentally led me to that issue. But anyway, yeah, it's so those games are what I kind of think of as self-limited, like retro games, where you could convert the visual assets directly over to something that could be played on an NES cartridge or something. Whereas games like Shadowcrypt, which is one of my favorite indie games in the past couple of years, it doesn't necessarily look like it could be played on old hardware. Excuse me. Maybe something like Super Nintendo or something, but I mean, that has its own style and its own look to it, and it looks very unified in itself. But yeah, it's not like Shovel Knight or Odallus or ONIKEN or anything like that. It's got its own kind of visual theme going on. And like I was saying earlier this week, my little brother wants to get a Nintendo, like an old crappy like gray brick Nintendo, gray box Nintendo. I think there's something to be said for games like this. Again, they kind of allow you to step into the game a little easier. And the imagination and the brain kind of takes over and fills in the gaps. So I think that's, I mean, outside of me being his older brother, but when he was playing Savage in its infancy, like before I even maybe knew what to call it, might not have even been Savage at that point, but it used to be kind of almost like a prison escape game, where I was going to structure the game a lot like Super Metroid or like Castlevania Symphony of the Night or something, where you have one map, or like oh my god, I'm having a brain fart here, but anyway, I'll figure it out later. You're like a little knight and you're exploring Maze of Gallios. That's the game, Maze of Gallios, where you go from screen to screen and it's like a giant maze, and you have to kind of solve the castle. kind of like in Super Metroid, where you have to solve, the planet. Symphony Night, you have to solve the castle. But I only had maybe like one screen, and it was like you had to get out of prison, you had to kill some guards and stuff, and you had to kill the guy who had the key to get out of the dungeon, and that was pretty much it. Like, no sound effects, very crappy controls. Maybe not too crappy. Like, they were competent, I guess, because he could play it, and he was super into it. But he was also 5. So, but I think visually, the game allowed him to kind of, engage his imagination. His imagination just kind of took over, and your mind can sort of paint this sort of photorealistic image of what the game is trying to communicate to you. So I was having an interesting talk with my friend Tim last night about all of this, and he's working on a similar thing too, a game called Boss 101, and it's very retro themed and retro in style, and that looks like it could be something that you could play on a Super Nintendo or like some kind of 32-bit machine. Mostly because there's just loads of information on the screen. Like, this game, it looks insane. I'm super excited to actually get to see a build of it and actually get to play a little bit of it. But yeah, ONIKEN, Odallus, games like Shovel Knight, Shadowcrypt, Boss 101. I think there's a reason why people kind of stick to retro-themed visuals. Not only just because it's a little easier to produce, but you can do so much more with it in certain ways. Like a super photorealistic modern military shooter, like, you can't really get away with a whole lot outside of things that happen in real life, or like near future kind of stuff, or anything like that. And it takes a lot more work to create something that would work within a photorealistic space. You have a little give and a little playroom when things get a little more abstract. Like, shoulder pads can be bigger, heads can be slightly bigger, or helmets can look more ridiculous, or in 2D low fidelity settings. That's of course, I'm kind of painting everything with broad strokes here, but that's kind of my takeaway from all that stuff. But yeah, I'll put links for Odallus and all the other things in there too, in the information. Shadowcrypt too. Shadowcrypt really deserves more love. Made by an animator at Nickelodeon. You can tell he really was into what he was doing. Shadowcrypt is a very short game, though. It takes place only across one dungeon. So the only real detractor to it, I think, is the visual theme of the game never really changes. You're like some kind of little crusader guy from some sort of brotherhood, and I think you're like one of the last of your kind who, they hunt undead or something. And he goes into this crypt, and you're supposed to kill this necromancer. I haven't actually beaten it yet. It's very difficult. Short but difficult. Again, it's almost like an old NES game where, the actual content you could probably get through in maybe 10 minutes if you were hardcore enough and you knew exactly what to do. But most of the game is in, exploration and figuring things out, and that's where the hours come in. And I put quite a bit into it too. And I every once in a while I get the itch to play it, so I have it just permanently installed on my machine because I like to load it up and fight some skeletons. The combat is very satisfying. It's very punishing if you make a mistake, but it's extremely satisfying. It doesn't have any sort of like leveling up mechanic or anything. You find power-ups that increase your weapon damage, and things that you find new shields and stuff that will give your shield slam certain certain properties, like, you know, it might stun a guy, has a chance to stun a guy or something, or the knockback is increased with a shield slam. So yeah, all you have is a sword, a shield, and you have throwing spears, and your spears take on the properties of whatever sword you have equipped. So if your sword has lightning damage or something, your spears have lightning damage. But the throwing spears are limited. You can find more by killing bad guys and stuff. They'll drop spears, and sometimes, if you're lucky, health. But you have 3 lives. There's no saving. You either make it or you don't. And when you die, you lose your weapon upgrades and shield upgrades and stuff. And so it's the combat is very similar to Zelda 2, where it's very positional. And which, yeah, if any of you have been following me and stuff and listening to these or listening to me talk about my game, you'll know that this is right up my alley, because I adore Zelda 2 for these very reasons. You have a shield and a sword, and you can block high and you can block low. You can attack high and you can attack low. Certain enemies have shields as well. Like if you run into a skeleton with a sword, he can pretty much do everything that you can do. He can, block high and block low, and strike high and strike low. So you're kind of trading blows with these guys, and also trying to stay on the defensive as well when necessary. So there's a lot of interesting. It's very simple but elegant. Like that's one of the best descriptors I can come up with this whole game. It's very elegant. It's tight and focused, very focused, and delivers a lot of punch when you start to get into the combat and start to get good at the combat. So it's very reactionary, very twitchy, but I love it, even though it kicks my ass so hard. I always go back to it when I'm craving that combat, which is a good thing, man. He nailed it with the combat. So I'll put a link to there as well, and maybe I'll pick up Odallus, the Dark Call as well. But anyway, that's probably going to do it for me. This shorter one today. I'm not feeling 100%. I can feel my voice starting to, and my mind is just melting like a fucking ice cream cone on a hot pavement, But anyway, I'll leave you with that. Thank you again so much for hanging out with me this morning, and I will talk to you next time. Take care.
No, baby. No, baby.
Hey,